You're listening to Bob Harden, streaming live online at bobharden.com.
Thanks so much for joining us here on the show. It's brought to you in part by the good folks at Johnson's Air Conditioning, Naples' longest established air conditioning company, as well as Naples Illustrated, bringing you infinite luxury lifestyles. Visit the website, naplesillustrated.com. Coming up, we're going to visit with Naples City Councilman Bill Barnett. Right now we have with us Dr. Zuhdi Jasser. He's a medical doctor. He's also the founder and publisher I should say the founder and president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy. He's also the author of a terrific book that I've read, and I highly recommend, The Battle for the Soul of Islam. Doctor, welcome to the show.
It's great to be with you, Bob. Thanks for having me back.
Well, always my pleasure, Doctor. And for our listeners that may not be familiar with your organization, maybe you could tell us about it.
The American Islamic Forum for Democracy is a group of Muslims that believe it's over 10 years old and believe that the problem of terrorism and jihadism is a Muslim problem that needs a Muslim solution. And we believe in reform against the ideas of the Islamic State and the mixture of Sharia and government, and believe that the only way to defeat them is to defeat the ideas of Islamism and separate mosque and state. And we confront these ideas in debate, universities, and policy and media, etc.
Yes, Doctor, and right now we're seeing living proof that the enemy is alive and well. Right now, the attempt to establish a caliphate, right now, ISIS in Iraq. Maybe you could describe your thoughts about what's going on right now.
Well, there's no doubt that ISIS is, if you see what it's doing in Iraq, imagine what it's doing in Syria. That's where it came out of. It's a product, and its growth and spread is a product of a failed and absent policy in Syria. And now we're faced with the unbelievable situation where you even hear Secretary Kerry hinting that somehow we may be giving a nod to Iran helping us because somehow we have a common enemy with them in Iraq, when in fact that does not make them an ally. They are still the equivalent of Al-Qaeda on the Shiite side, and you have Islamism on both sides coming to a head in Iraq. And the reason Iraq has fallen apart, ISIS is a radical Al-Qaeda type group that does not believe in nation states, that saw that it had some strongholds in Syria. And just as General Keane mentioned in the Wall Street Journal, it's interesting, if you look at the bombing patterns in Syria, ISIS has been protected by Assad, has not been bombed, while he has been committing a genocide against the moderates in Syria. You see now many of the streets in Iraq that are cheering what ISIS is doing are not Al-Qaeda, but they're Sunnis who say, you know what, let's let them get rid of Maliki. And you have these old Ba'ath generals, which even from the time of Petraeus, many of us were saying that Petraeus was wrong in stopping the de-Baathification, that the Ba'ath generals were going to be a problem that sometime would rear its head, and Obama continued that policy, and the Ba'ath now are cheering the end of Maliki. You saw the Wall Street Journal yesterday talk late about a report in which they say that, well, Obama is saying that Maliki must go, and I'll tell you that would have been a good policy a year ago. But now, basically, we're feeding into the Sunni radicals, and it's just a mess because we have no policy. And in the world where there is no American leadership, you have a vacuum that gets filled by this Darwinian evolution of the most evil winning to fight each other. And that's what's happening in Iraq. It's become a conglomeration of radicals fighting each other, and the moderates in Iraq that our soldiers went to protect and liberate are being decimated.
Yeah. Doctor, how important is it that this administration refuses to acknowledge the true enemy, which is Islamic jihad or political jihad?
That, you just hit the nail on the head, and then why we do the work we do as to why you see groups of a few thousand like ISIS causing the problems they do. The narrative from the administration that Al-Qaeda was gone and defeated, or that Al-Qaeda is simply a grievance group. If America shrinks in the world, terrorism will go away. That narrative and everything that happens in the world, the administration and its media apologists continue to operate in that narrative, even till today, saying that the conservatives are using this as a blame game, etc. The bottom line is that's not the narrative of ISIS. That's not the narrative of the Islamists, even in Iran or on the Shiite side or Sunni side. Their narrative is about global domination. It's about the caliphate. It's about building Islamic State. It's about the organization of Islamic cooperation becoming a neo-caliphate rather than being secular nation states. That is the ideology that's spreading. You see them instituting Sharia law. And until we engage that even stronger than we did in the Cold War against communism, you're not going to find any solutions that empower the moderates until the Obama administration takes side within the House of Islam and recognizes that there's an ideological battle for modernity, and ISIS and the other groups like them are a byproduct of that battle. We're going to continue to leave a vacuum, and the moderates are going to be abandoned because we're going to have to say they don't exist, and these groups are grievance groups, which is what they're not.
Right. And in fact, we've got a very active Muslim Brotherhood right here in the United States that has so much influence. And Adam Credo of the Washington Free Beacon reported that the State Department had issued an apology for promoting a controversial Muslim scholar who called for the death of Jews and Americans. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that scholar is Bin Bayat, and we had also reported along with Adam about the unbelievable state in which our White House invited him in the fall and then had to apologize for doing so after, again, promoting him when he came just a few weeks ago. And the bottom line is their mantra is that, well, because he condemns Al-Qaeda, he must be a good guy. Well, that is the most short-sighted policy filter, and it tells you that the Brotherhood groups and the Islamist apologists are driving Obama's policy because, yes, they can be against Al-Qaeda because they don't want to do this by violence, but they still have a very different vision for the world, and their vision is about Islamist domination and growth of the Islamic State and the Sharia state. So ultimately, you look back at this guy's writing, and he might be against Al-Qaeda, but he was against women's rights. He was anti-Semitic. He promoted terrorism in Iraq and Israel and wherever else it feeds Muslim Brotherhood interests. So this is part of the mantra of what our administration is missing and why it allies with the wrong people, because its lens that it uses is simply anti-Al-Qaeda rather than anti-Islamist.
Again, the website is aifdemocracy.org, aifdemocracy.org. Check out more about the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, aifdemocracy.org. Also, I'm going to encourage you to read the book, The Battle for the Soul of Islam. It's not just a treatise about the separation of church and mosque and state. It's a true personal story and journey by Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, and telling his personal story, but also commenting on what's going on in the world. I think you find it a terrific read. Doctor, always a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Anytime. Thank you, Bob. Take care.
All right. Thank you.